All right, we are live. ETM Media. We've got a special guest with us tonight, Danielle Churcher, someone that I was having a little exchange with on Twitter, which brings us to the topic of our show discussion tonight, which is who should receive reparations. Danielle, did you want to say hi to the audience and let
Hello,
them know what?
everyone.
Yeah. So, you identify as N'COBRA, or that's in your handle on Twitter, is which where we ran across each other. Could you tell the audience a little bit about your affiliation with Cobra, or why you are so loyal to the cause?
Well, I'm disloyal at this point, which is how you caught the discourse. I actually am one of those what you consider probably a legacy in Cobra Kid. My mom was a member years and years ago, and she left at about 95. So and she never told me why. She always left it up to me. And so me fighting for reparations, and Cobra's the name, she didn't stop me. And what I found is I see why she left. So I am actually on my way out the door from affiliating with them in any fashion.
Oh, wow. That
Interesting.
sounds like a pretty new development. So, yeah, we will definitely talk about that. Want to learn more. But first, before we do that, we will just do a little news roundup, see what has been in the news this week. All right. First up, family of DMX asks for prayers and holds vigil outside New York hospital. The family of famed rapper DMX held a vigil outside the New York hospital where the 50-year-old is hospitalized after suffering a heart attack. The rapper, whose real name is Earl Simmons, was hospitalized Friday and is now facing serious health issues, his family said. We ask that you please keep Earl DMX and us in your thoughts, wishes, and prayers as well as respect our privacy as we face these challenges, his family said in a statement to Entertainment Tonight. A large crowd gathered outside White Plains Hospital on Monday evening. They played the rapper's song, chanted his name, and prayed for his recovery. Prayers up for DMX. All right. What else is going on? Capitol police officer was killed by car striking him, DC police say. The man who drove his car into two U.S. Capitol police officers standing in front of the steel barricade on Friday was shot and killed by a third officer after he climbed out of his car wielding a knife, DC police said on Monday. One of the two officers died of his injuries, and the other was released from a hospital on Saturday. The police news release made it clear William Billy Evans, an 18-year-old veteran of Capitol Police, and a second officer whose name has not been released, were not stabbed by their assailant and did not fire their weapons. The police formally confirmed Monday that Noah Green, 25, was the driver who rammed the two officers and then was shot dead. Suspect in mass shooting in Orange, California business complex knew his victims, police say. The suspect, 44-year-old Amadid Galaxo Gonzalez, who police say killed four people, including a 9-year-old boy, at an Orange, California business complex Wednesday, had professional and personal relationships with the victims, police said. The preliminary motive is believed to be related to a business and personal relationship which existed between the suspect and other victims. Orange Police Department spokesman Lieutenant Jennifer Ammett said in the news conference Thursday. This was not a random act of violence, she said. Okay. All right. Cher apologizes for not appropriate George Floyd tweet. Cher's original tweet. Wrestled with this tweet because I thought some people wouldn't understand or believe in entertainment could have honest emotions about a human being suffering and dying, even if it's only shown on TV. You don't know what I've done, who I am, or what I believe. I can. I have and will help. One Twitter user wrote at Cher, I say this with respect. White savior complex, stop. Another said, if the firefighter EMS who tried to intervene didn't succeed, you sure had no chance. What a post. Mind boggling. Do you think you have some kind of magical power? Police would not allow anyone to interfere in their business. This looks like a follow-up tweet from Cher. I just got off the phone with friend Karen, told her what happened, and realized you can piss people off and hurt them by not knowing everything. That's not appropriate. To say I know people apologize when they're in a jam, but to God, I'm truly sorry if I upset anyone in the Black community. I know my heart. All right. Then let's look at what's going on. Derek Chauvin. Minneapolis Police Chief Derek Chauvin in no way should have kept George Floyd pinned by the neck. The chief spelled out department policies and then said the officer he fired violated many provisions. Okay. Minneapolis Police Chief Madaria Ardondo testified Monday in the murder trial of Derek Chauvin that the now fired officer defied his own training and the department's mission of compassion when he kept his knee on the neck of George Floyd for more than 9 minutes last spring. Once Mr. Floyd had stopped resisting, and certainly once he was in distress and trying to verbalize that should have stopped. The chief said after spelling out department policy on what to use force versus calming a situation through de-escalation tactics. There's an initial reasonableness of trying to just get him under control in the first few seconds, but once there's no longer any resistance, and clearly when Mr. Floyd was no longer responsive and even motionless, to continue to apply that level of force to the person proned out, handcuffed behind their back, that in no way, shape, or form is anything that is by policy, by our training, and is certainly not part of our ethics value. All right, and here we are. Here we are. Chris has joined us, and Yamoya, and we have our special guest, Daniel Churcher, with us today. So, are you guys ready to get into this conversation on what reparations is and who the recipient should be?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Okay. Reparation, noun. The making of amends for wrong that has been done by paying money to otherwise helping those who have been wrong. The courts required a convicted offender to make financial reparations to his victim, as an example. The compensation for war damage paid by defeated state. Reparations. The Treaty of Versailles imposed heavy reparations and restrictions on Germany. So reparations is to repair harm to those that have been harmed. I think we can all agree on that definition.
Indeed, we can.
Indeed, indeed.
I was gonna nitpick it a little bit. Gonna nitpick it a little bit to start. because I think we're asking a specific question, right? In terms of should get reparations, not saying who in all of the history of mankind is due reparations. By that definition, who should get reparations for slavery and Jim Crow. Right. That's a more precise question, but I am gonna accept the definition as I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's good that they're talking about reparations. We're hearing a lot more about the word reparations, which is good. But we do need to, carve out that specificity, and we just don't want it thrown around as a word to where it doesn't have any meaning. So let's take a look at what AOC has to say about reparations. Alexandra or AOC faced massive flack over her statements on Black Lives Matter movement comparing African Americans and the latex community. U.S. Congressional Rep AOC on Sunday faced massive flack. Her statements on Black Lives Matter movement, where she equated African Americans and latex based on their descent, claiming that Latinos are Black. When asked what the latex community should do to stop racism, she said, first thing we should do is talk about racism within our community, how we are impacted by racism, and how to exist within us. A lot of times I'll hear people say, this is about Black Lives Matter. What about Latinos? And I always say, Latinos are Black. We are Afro Latino, and we run an entire racial spectrum. Okay, well, some backed AOC Cortez, saying that she was talking about Afro-Latino community, a spectrum of people from Dominican, Cuba, Puerto Rico, who are Black by descent. Others took offense to her comments, especially in the backdrop of the horrific death of African-American man George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests that shook the world in the aftermath. Some also reminded Cortez of her history, where Latinos had, in fact, been oppressors and perpetrators of slavery in South America. And that was back during the protest, the BLM protest. More recently, she made a comment. New York Congresswoman AOC held a town hall Wednesday, so this is last week, Wednesday night, criticizing the completely inhumane and unacceptable, horrifying conditions currently at the U.S.-Mexico border migrant facilities. Currently, there are about 6,000 children are in Customs and Border Protection's custody. Overall, there are about 20,000 children in the custody of the federal government, overall, including shelter facilities and other housing. It's the highest number ever since the federal government has been recording the number of migrant children. In 2019, when Donald Trump was the president, Cortez visited the border and decried the conditions as concentration camps. While claiming Trump's immigration policies are harsher than Biden's, she added, I don't want to excuse any of this. I don't want to excuse any of this. We should be doing better by now. At one point, she said families who were forcibly separated during Trump years are owed reparations, period. What do you guys think about those comments? Let's stop there and unpack these statements.
I'll just jump on in. I don't care what AOC except for the fact that use the word reparation in this context, which is why I was with his comments just a few minutes about hiding it, right? Because we're talking about specific here. We're really talking about reparations for a specific systems, right? So what kids who were separated at the border or some type of repair and reparations, the case for that. They may have a case that something right for, but very different from what we're talking about, which is reparations for U.S. slavery and for Jim Crow, etc. And someone like me who is not a kid who was separated at my birth in some border facility, I would not be eligible for those reparations. Hopefully not.
Facts.
Right? Just like those kids should not be eligible, and I don't think would even try to be eligible for reparations for U.S. slavery and for Jim Crow and the effects of U.S. slavery and Jim Crow. So that's where I would start.
Okay. And my question
Yeah.
is, ooh, that's a lot of feedback. But can you even be eligible for reparations when you're doing something illegally? I mean, had they not been trying to cross the border illegally, then they would not have suffered that harm.
And my extension on that would be that if you break the law, you go to jail, and that's a separation from your children because children can't go to jail with you. So you knew breaking the law, you were risking losing your children. I don't see how that's a harm done. That's a consequence.
I'm gonna jump on in there. Like I concur with a little bit of both Chris and Danielle. The definition of reparations is not specific to our claim, but all reparation claims are specific to the group that is filing it. So to Chris's point, if we as ADOS, as descendants of chattel slavery, are saying, "Hey, the U.S. government did an injustice to us because of A, B, and C, so we are seeking X, Y, and Z," that makes perfect sense. And to his point, it doesn't make sense for anyone outside of that group to try and claim that. In the same way, hey, if these individuals are seeking reparations for their mistreatment, no one outside of that group should seek reparations. Now, to Danielle's point, if you are doing something illegal, right? Like if I am robbing a bank, can I sue the cops for punching me in the face while arresting me? That's a question, right? And you can certainly go down that route, excuse me, and you have the right to your own defense and to face your accuser and all that kind of stuff. So
Not
I
sure if it's me, but I can't hear CO at all.
check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, maybe I just need to speak up a little bit. So, for individuals who are seeking to cross the border illegally, um, to Danielle's point, are they able to now seek a reparations claim? I honestly think that's a really good question. I do know that you can seek asylum once you get to the border, right? So you can get to there and surrender yourself and then file the paperwork, and that is legal. But to cross the border, let's just say you're coming in from Mexico and you cross the Texas border and make your way to Minnesota and get caught, that's a whole different story than individuals who show up to the border and file the appropriate paperwork. So I am quite curious, and would be interested in asking a whole lot more questions, because I think the point that Danielle brings up is sufficient, and is real. Of when you're breaking the law, what rights do you have? Because they're not all eliminated, but some of them are.
Okay. Moya, any thoughts there? Do you want to take the next slide? Oh, can't hear you, brother. Mm. Can anyone hear you, Moya?
No, ma'am.
My yeah, I think he's working on it. Um, I do have one while we're so the this like this is probably a good place because like to start this conversation because questions of reparations is I think very and who I think is like I said those two questions are are not just linked but and any and every reparations definition is very or claim is very specific to a specific group that was harmed. That's for any aims that successful, right? That's what we've seen over right. And that was the case in the case of the Japanese. That was the case in the case of folks that is and the many of the different native tribes. Um, so any reparation aim is really specific to a specific group of people, and how you define that specific group of people. I know we're probably going to talk about, but it's important to start. I think really on the every definition of reparation is specific to a specific group.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it then. Danielle, I know before you jumped on, Chris, CO and I were chatting it up with our guest a little bit. She kind of dropped a little pivot bomb on us. Says that she's not really rocking with N'COBRA the way she was last week when we had our little exchange on Twitter. Now, Danielle, so how does that feel, disconnecting from a group that you were so loyal to and had so much passion for? And second part of my question is, so who do you plan to align with in this fight for reparations?
Well, thanks for having me on again. So with this, it's really what you seen last week was a combination of that thing coming to a head. And so I normally engage really tough. I stood behind in Cobra. My fight is for reparations, period, for the descendants of slaves. It just doesn't get any deeper to me than that. Mainly because I can identify and actually have 9 bills of sale and counting. So it's reparations is dear to me. You know that when you look in your lineage and you look at your ancestors and you can say that you have empirical proof that at least 9 of your grandparents, we're not talking aunts and uncles, 9 of my grandparents were enslaved, at least that changed things for me. And it made me fight harder, and so because N'COBRA is a legacy group, I stood behind them. I was with pushing HR 40 and we're going to get this going. And then I started hearing rhetoric that didn't sit well with me. So what you seen last week was me saying, hey, are you in tune with the people you're supposed to represent? Are you guys really hearing us at this point? Because I'm unlike many others, I have tangible proof of the wrong done. Where a lot of people in Cobra hadn't, they don't really push the genealogy so much. They're not, into let's get this specific harm identified and corrected. And HR 40 has been sitting for 30 years almost, if not a little longer, and no movement on it, even again. And so when you look at the things that have been done and you say, okay, why is this thing sitting for 30 years? And then you hear, people of power in this situation speaking against their ancestors, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Maybe this is why we haven't gotten reparations. And so I'm at the point where I'm like, look, I'm with getting the job done. And so I will stand with Reparations Collective. I will stand with Reparations Over Everything. I will stand with any organization that's literally trying to get repair and justice for my enslaved ancestors. So the only person I stand true to is my grandparents who were enslaved and bought and sold. And I could tell you prices from $325 to $575. And I know that don't seem like a lot of money, but they were bought and sold for those prices. and children ending up being enslaved because they were enslaved and for generations to come. So the only person I'm truly loyal to are those enslaved ancestors, and that's all. And then Cobra just didn't get it.
Okay, thank you for that. Um, it looks like Yamoy is coming back to join us. While we pull him in the stream, I will just read
All right, fam,
in
I'm back.
Cobra. Hey, welcome back. What in Cobra?
Oops, sorry about that, fam. My bad. I know Kim was going in too. I'm gonna mute my mic. Oh, Kim, do you want me to go?
Kim, you're muted now.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We were just going to read what in Cobra's definition on who should receive reparations. All right. Who should receive reparations? Within the broadest definition, all people, all Black people of African descent in the United States should receive reparations in the form of changes in or elimination of laws and practices that allow them to be treated differently and less well than white people. For example, ending racial profiling and discrimination in the provision of health care, providing scholarship and community development funds for Black people of African descent, and supporting processes of self-determination will only benefit descendants of enslaved African, will not only benefit descendants of enslaved Africans, but all African descendant peoples in the United States who, because of their color, are victims of the vestiges of slavery. This is similar to Rosewood, Florida reparations package, where some forms of reparations were provided only to persons who descended from those who were injured, died, or lost their homes, and other forms were made available to all Black people of African descent in Florida.
Yeah, I want to hear. First, I want to underscore something that Danielle said. A couple of points that Danielle said. First, I'm not gonna make any and to say that I have it for their work. I have respect for what they have done. I have, I've seen that they've been making more effort, at least very recently over the past few years, in particular around HR 40, which is also a bill that Danielle mentioned, HR 40 S40, right? Both are one is a House version, one is a Senate version of the bill to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans Act, right? I'm not gonna, I don't have anything untoward or any ill will toward N'COBRA at all. I wanted to start there, and that goes for their leadership and also for their membership too. I want to appreciate what they've done, and it may be time for new voices and new blood, right? As I think it probably is that time. So first, that's the first place to start. Secondly, I want to co-sign what Danielle said also in terms of it's really about us being lineage and us being descendants and and the commitment to the fight for reparations. That's the thing. So this group who you going ride with that is less important than the fact that we not you one way or another, right? So who you riding with and who you show up with is not as important from to my perspective as what you doing, and also the fact are actually engaged in the I want to second that 100. I completely agree. And I do want to pivot real quickly. Take a look at that, or take a spin at that mission or paragraph you just read, Kim, on who National Coalition for Blacks for reparations in America, which is what we call what who they define as the eligible recipients for reparations. This is a first agreement that I have with um, N'COBRA's thinking on this, and I'm talking about the organization's thinking here, and it's a disagreement that I think we can ultimately resolve. So it is a fundamental agreement. It's to all descendants of Africans in the United States are eligible for, I want to be specific, for reparations for U.S. slavery and Jim Crow, and for the effects of U.S. slavery and Jim Crow, which exists today, is, I think, wrong. The eligible parties for reparations for U.S. slavery and for Jim Crow and for the effects of it are those of us who descend from U.S. slavery and from Jim Crow. And that is Danielle, that is UCO, that's me here, that's you, Moya, that's Kim, right? Each and every single one of us, it sounds like, or at least from talking to you all and, previously, and just from knowing you, and then from meeting Danielle now, this is each one of us has verifiable evidence of our ancestors' enslavement here in this country, right? We are a specific group, right? We're not just bound by our skin color. We're also bound by that shared history, that shared lineage, that shared experience, and that is the group that is eligible or should be eligible for reparations for U.S. slavery and for Jim Crow and for the ongoing effects of it. That group alone, right? And that's about 35 million people if you count us all together, right? Some, between 35 and 37 million ish people. So I did want to point out that at least from my perspective, and just full disclosure, I am the campaign lead for the campaign to fix HR 40. So that is not only my position, that's the position of the campaign itself. That right now, the definition of who gets reparations, we have a big disagreement with, but we can get to a place where we resolve the disagreement. I'm 100% positive.
What do you think that resolution would look like, Chris?
Quickly, it's like some move part of organizations like N'COBRA, like NARC, right? NARC also African American Reparations Commission, other organizations that are behind this sort of current idea of reparation, right? Like some movement from them toward our position, where we have a set of eligibility requirements that is very specific to the group that suffered harm, and that continues to suffer the harm. And again, that group is very specifically those Americans who descend from U.S. from and we like criteria, the specific eligibility criteria that Dr. William Sandy Darity outlines in his paper. I think it's called Economics of Reparations. He outlines two criteria at least. One, that you be able to demonstrate you have at least one ancestor who was enslaved in the United States, right? That's point number one. And then two, it's a big and, right? So you have to satisfy both of these, and also are someone who self-identifies as Black, African American, or in some cases Negro and colored if you're a bit older. Right? So those two criteria at bare minimum have to be satisfied, and it's not an or. So that's the resolution I'm looking for brings us something like this, and less close to something like what the N'COBRAs of the world are saying in that paragraph. Because to be honest with you, that paragraph that you read agrees with AOC, right? That's like that's like a way to say what AOC said. AOC said, hey, Latino is Black. We descend from Africans, right? So in that definition, what's stopping the AOCs of the world from saying, hey, listen, we need to get some of those reparations for from U.S. slavery and from Jim Crow too, because we black, right? So yeah, anyway, that's the answer.
Okay, well, it sounds like everybody on this panel agrees. And I was a little bit confused, Danielle. Actually, you're not the N'COBRA Loyalist that was on that thread, are you? You're the other one who came in saying that you had papers and receipts. But at some point, your family was affiliated with N'COBRA.
I actually, like I said, I'm a legacy kid, so I grew up in N'COBRA. And so, yeah, at one point I was a huge loyalist because I thought they were right. At one point I felt like, all of us came from Africa, and I felt like everybody black deserved reparations. And it wasn't personal to me because I didn't have my actual tangibles. And I think that N'COBRA banks a lot on their members not knowing. And as long as you don't know and you're just black, it doesn't matter. The thing that kind of set me ablaze was I kept hearing paying 90 countries. And I went, 90 countries? And it started me digging. And the more I dug, I realized that it's highly possible that the majority of my ancestors were not chatteled in through Africa, but rather enslaved right here in America anyway. And so it was like, dang. So when I bring it to him, and I'm like, yo, are you saying that like you're only paying at? It was a lot. Like when you seen last week, it was literally saying, yeah, I would love to defend you, but they're making good points. And that's where I am with them. I believe that if they decided to reach out and talk to descendants of slaves, and do the legwork and get the tangibles and do it right, I'm all for it. I'm right back on the train. But as long as they want to take shortcuts and dishonor our elders and our ancestors, absolutely not. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's a really bad spot to be in.
So you also made another point that this HR 40 has been sitting for 30 plus years. Do you think that part of the reason it has been sitting for 30 plus years is because the rightful heirs weren't the ones that, put it forward or aren't the ones that are pushing for it?
I think it's a combination. So there's laws. Some of the laws, and I've been, since about 2019, kind of pushing back on this, saying America's not going to deal with what Britain owes. They've already passed a law that says they will not pay the debts of Great Britain. So when they have language like 1565 or 1619, I've been saying, hey, I think that might be an error. But it wasn't a deal breaker, because I do understand why the dates are there. But I think that could be one of the reasons why, they just haven't approved it. The other thing is the small language of Africans and African descents. Um, America knows what they did. It's one of those things where the person who did the wrong knows exactly how wrong they are. And so I believe that when you don't have the information correct, it's kind of like they don't take you serious. You don't even know what happened. So are you asking me to pay for something that you don't know, what's going on? And I hate that it came to this. I wish that, we had 100 days and I banked on them. I stood on it and we voted blue no matter who. And if as long as they got the House Senate and the White House, we're getting HR 40. And here we are out of the first 100 days, and HR 40 is stuck with 169 co-sponsors and sitting in committee. I think that might be it.
So Danielle, you say you voted blue no matter who. So was that your group, the group, the N'COBRA group that you were working? That was your position as a voting block?
Yeah, that was the voting block position. Reparations, get Biden, the House, Senate, and White House, and we'll get HR 40 and we'll get our reparations. That was the idea.
Yeah, that was absolutely a if you prior to the election, right? Election, and the lead up to the election, to the election specifically, for president last year. Danielle is right. And we saw this on Twitter. We saw this coming from different reparations, organizations. That there was a campaign like in support of electing Joe Biden that was used like relations is on the ballot. Right? I remember that specifically. Reparations is on the ballot, and that's why we need to get Joe Biden in office, and Kamala also, right? And we have seen one hearing this year already all right. It was last month, or that was in February, right? Which depending on how you judged it, you could argue whether or not that wing or whether that was it was definitely technically hearing, but we heard a lot of nonsense, from the Republicans at that hearing, right? But the another good point here, and Kim, you asking a really good question too, which is why has the reparations bill, the only reparations bill that exists right now, right, not moved in 30 years? And I think there's a lot of different reasons. And Yale is putting her finger on at least one or two of them, which is there's some technical and some non-technical improvements and things that have to be made about the language, right. Then you're right. And this is one of our recommendations that comes from the Fix HR 40 team, right? It's that start the claim in 76. You don't start 1619, because there was no United States prior to 1776, right? So any claim that are made between 16 or 15 or 1565, 50s, right? You're talking about anything before 1776 has to be made to the colonials, right? The non-existent colonial powers, the used to be colonial powers. So that's done through an internet claim, and that can be handled. That's not something that we can't handle. I think we can definitely handle it, but to have that in language for HRS 40 is we think a mistake. There are other technicals with the legislation as well, but I do think the actual language of the bill is actually partly why the bill not moved in the way that we want it to move or have. In 30 years. Now, there's definitely been more momentum over the last 2 years, right, than before, right? The fact that you have 170 something co-sponsors, these are 30-year highs, right? The co-sponsors HR 40 had ever gotten prior to 2020 is prior to 2019 and is like in the 20s or like I think between 20 and 40 co-sponsors top, right? You're just getting up to the 150s and in the last particularly last year of the last Congress, obviously the first year of this Congress. I'll shut up now.
Hey Kim, did we sorry when I was out and have some technical issues, did we go over the CARICOM and also the Black immigrants? So yeah, you have to unmute.
I said, why don't you pull that up and walk us through it? We did not go over CARICOM.
All right, so let's go over the CARICOM. Oops. All right, here we go. So member states and associates, this is according to the CARICOM's website. Says member states and associate members, all CARICOM countries are classified as developing countries. They are all relatively small in terms of population and size, and diverse in terms of geography and population, culture, and levels of economic and social development. CARICOM countries share similarities and challenges. On the one hand, they are all in proximity to major markets in North and South America, and most countries have had to make the transition from agriculture or mining to a service-driven economy, especially tourism and financial services. On the other hand, they have to overcome the challenges of frequent natural disasters, in addition to small size with associated lack of economics of scale and vulnerability, yeah, get it right, to external shocks. All members subscribe to the community's principles outlined in the revised Treaty of, I don't even know what that word is, Chagraramas in 2002. Leaders of member states shape the community's policies and priorities. They meet twice yearly to discuss issues affecting the community and the wider world at the Conference of Heads of Government. All members have an equal say regardless of size or economic status. This ensures that every member has a voice of shaping the Caribbean community. And just to note some of the member states: Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Suriname, Trinidad, some of the associate members: Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Turks, and Cocos Islands. So I just wanted to bring this up and mention that, as you can see, this is the Caribbean's, I guess, association of their form of reparations. As you can see, it's predominantly based on the islands. And as far as I'm concerned, and others can comment as well, I wouldn't think that somebody who originally descended from the United States of America, chattel enslavement, should or actually get some of the reparations that CARICOM is claiming. Does anybody have any response to that?
I mean, you could make a case that there are some enslaved persons, either on, CARICOM's side, on the Caribbean, brought to the U.S., or U.S. brought to the. But that gets really messy. It can be argued.
Okay, Danielle, I think you're going in and out. Can
Yeah,
everybody hear
you're
Danielle?
breaking up a little bit.
Try one more time.
Okay. Can you hear me this time?
That's better, yes.
Hello? Okay. No, situation and the paperwork would have to be right. But I think there could be a case that there would be some duality there.
From the United States, because I know that I would not qualify, or I don't think I would. I haven't done my genealogy for any of those nations. But would you qualify for a CARICOM claim? And is CARICOM trying to get reparations for all of their member countries? Yamoya, do you know?
From my understanding, it's, and I could be wrong, so we have to double check, but I think it's just for the Caribbean islands.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
you're really, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was saying, yep, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, there'll be some of us here who, like, if you're from South, deep South, and then your dad is from, Jamaica, something like that, you might be able to, you might be eligible for both. There's definitely a small who are, who have parents or who have family who have family who is mixed in the sense, some of the black immigrant, some some are common, or it's more common. I think, in like certain specific parts of the country, right? Was I'm thinking like, I'm originally from New York, so I'm thinking like to the Northeast and New York area, right? And so the East Coast and West Coast too. You're gonna have more of that than less than, but it's gonna be a very very small, small amount of, right? But to your question, Kim. So there's you can see the U.S. flag on that list of flags. Okay, all right. The USA was on that list of groups who are. So that means those are that means reparations don't go. Those who were slavery U.S. from, so like those CARICOM reparations don't go to me, and to Danielle, right. It was here, and that was fine, right. We're not Jamaican, we're Haitian, right. We have no here, we have no there. I would never, I wouldn't the reparation from that's given to somebody who's actually from there and has that. And that's all we're saying. Our claim, right? We have a specific claim. We have a history. We're a specific group, and that's our reparations should get dispersed and get put out. And the that doesn't fight for each other's claims though, right? So that just because I won't get something from the CARICOM, mean that I won't fight for my Jamaican brothers and sisters, my Haitian brothers, my CARICOM, and them there. Like that's I call it, we fight for everybody, right? To sometimes all right. So it doesn't mean we won't, and that we can't fight for brothers and sisters to get what's due. We won't be partaking of it, right? And we would expect the same thing in return. So fight for us to get ours, but also fight for us to get experience specific.
Okay, that makes
Kim,
sense. That makes
eh,
sense.
Kim, I also want to bring up. Did you bring up the I guess the definition of what the African immigrant is, or no?
No,
Okay, I'll bring that
no.
up. All right, so let's. This is the definition of an African immigrant, according to the United States, according to Wikipedia. Um African migration to the United States, not to be confused with African American descendants of slavery. African immigration to the United States refers to immigrants to the United States who are or were nationals of modern African countries. The term African in the scope of this article refers to geographical or national origins rather than racial affiliation. Between the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 and 2017, the African born population in the United States grew to 2.1 million people. African immigrants in the United States come from almost all regions in Africa and do not constitute a homogeneous group. They include peoples from different national, linguistic, ethnic, racial, cultural, and social backgrounds. As such, African immigrants are distinct from native born African Americans. Many of those ancestors were involuntarily brought from West and Central Africa to the colonial United States by means of the historic Atlantic slave trade. So I just wanted to bring that up because, to me, and I could be wrong, but, and, Danielle and Chris and CO and Kim, you guys can jump in after I get done. I could be wrong, but isn't that a little conflict to what kind of N'COBRA is saying in terms of like their definition? And I have personally no problems with N'COBRA. They've done a great job, and peace out to Queen Mother Moore, fighting for reparations, and they will always continue. But according to that definition, is there a conflict there, or is it just me?
Jump in. Anybody want to jump in before?
I was gonna say the same thing. Probably Chris. Like, yes, it's 100% accounts for it.
Oh, so the is there like between potentially, I'm not sure. You know, again, it depends what you're talking about because it, from what we read from them to specifically the definition of or excuse me the Hushation rations, right? Those folks would those we just defined as African immigrants could be right eligible for reparation in the United States. So someone who barely left one of the countries of Africa, and here in the United States, according to their idea of reparations, could be eligible for reparations. Not 100% because ideally that person have to be of folks who were enslaved, right? And we know that, and we have to keep it real. There were folks in different countries in Africa. Let's say that because Africa is not a country, right? There were folks in different countries in Africa who did the enslaving, who were enslaved. To be honest about our history, we were necessarily stolen, at least not stolen by folks in kids were kidnapped and then to white folks, right? In most cases, 90% of the cases. So depending on what that African brother has as his or her, right, that person could be eligible for here in the United States, according to NCOBRA's definition of reparation. Again, we just have a fundamental disagreement there, right? It's not to say that folks with melanin and black folks, no matter where they came from, we're saying that suffer racism largely in proximity to right? But they don't suffer racism, and they haven't experienced things that need to be repaired. Position is and I could speak for the campaign on Fix HR 40. Our position has been folks do. You are an African immigrant and you came here in the 1960s or after Jim Crow. Most African immigrants had after the 1960s, right? 1970s. You have a and it's not just you. My brother, one of the countries in Africa still is it's you, my brother and sister, who one of those countries in the Caribbean, right? Jamaica, Haiti, right? And then also who may come from parts of South America, wherever you come from. Right? This country punishes blackness. We can't ignore that. However, we're saying they are very different, and they're very so those who voluntarily to come here and have the history of slavery in this country, right? Who 250 plus years, who have the 100 plus years of Jane Crow tide here in America, right? We are race people. We are all black, but we are black in our black way, right? Just like those folks are black in a no one is other, but we have different claims. So they do have they should if I would give organizers and some advice, they should start organizing around their own claim. I think to be able to support each other, but this is a separate claim. Right. So the question again, obviously being long-winded. Not sure if there's there's a contradiction. There's definitely a contradiction in the idea of to get reparations. That's for sure.
All right, I know CO wanted to say something. I know she's been chomping at the bits.
My bad, fam. My mic was on mute. Like not for nothing, but Chris and Danielle is saying it all, so I'm just here to co-sign today, apparently. Um, but yeah, there's a distinct difference between African immigrants and descendants of slavery here. And while yes, we are all black, lowercase b, we are not all black, capital B. And the choice to leave place A to move to place B and inherit all of the politics and everything at location B is a choice. This descendants of slaves, like for instance, I am on both sides, my mother and father, or just I can trace into slavery. We had no choice. You know, we don't have a place to go home. We don't have an ability to what do you call it? Have two different passports in two different locations. So our claim is quite specific in the sense that the claim in the Caribbean should additionally be quite specific. And as Chris said, I will absolutely support my fellow brothers and sisters down there because they need their own reparations. They need their own healing for what has been systematically done to them, just as we do. But again, that question, like the term reparations, I know people are kind of sort of just throwing it around, but it has to come with parameters. It has to come with I'm at a loss for words here, but it has to come with stipulations as to what the specific reparations is for, like what the claim is against and who it's for. In the same way, when folks go to court, it's like, I have been injured by, you know, person A has been injured by person B, and this is the injury, and this is what they are seeking to recoup that injury, right? Which isn't to say that anyone else can't have an injury against person B or person C, but it means specifically me here, these are the parameters for my reparations.
Yep, great point. I know we're a minute or 3 minutes actually over the show, the hour. Kim, was there anything else that we had to go
I
through?
mean, we could wrap it up. I just want to kind of ask the room, where do we go from here? Danielle, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the link that I posted on Twitter to AB 3121, which is the bill out here in California to start a reparations task force. Wondering if what you guys are doing in Minnesota, if anything, for your own statewide reparations.
To repair Fort Snelling, so part of the Dred Scott situation. Those people who are enslaved at Fort Snelling will be getting a proposal, as well as the descendants of Rondo, who I'm a double descendant of. There will be some restorative justice there for the loss of housing and things like that. So our fingers are crossed in Minnesota. We got a lot going on. We got George Floyd happening and the Chauvin trial, and so we're nervous up here. You know, Minnesota is not necessarily the calmest right now. But I did see AB 3121. I want to plug 541 down in Georgia. So do not forget about Georgia. Tamara Shealy is campaigning AB 541 down in Georgia. You can check her website for that. So I am pretty excited to see where reparations is going to take us. It is happening. It is happening. It is happening. And
It's
I land.
happening.
Yeah, shout out to Tamara. Hey, Chris, I know, Chris, you want to say something about Sister Sheila?
Oh, just be no and definitely want to plug 541. I believe it's HB 541 down in there in Georgia. Georgia. Thanks, Danielle, and appreciate the shout out for the work on work 312120. That everyone you're speaking to here right now had a more than a hand and foot and an elbow in AB 31, and we for years on that legislation, and we're still working on the roots of that legislation right now here in California, and whatever assistance and or guidance provide folks down in Minnesota. Totally open to doing it. You're absolutely that reparation is happening. This is it's gonna stay in the conversation because of stuff like we're doing now, and also I want to flag one thing that we're thinking here in addition to this reparations effort that's it. We're also working on a statewide constitutional amendment, ACA 3, which would remove the slavery exception, the involuntary servitude exception from our institution. So it would basically remove the slavery exception from our state, of the 13th Amendment. That's another that we're proud to support here. Same line, right? That one there has to be ceasing of but then also a repair damage done in the form of reparations. I just want to flag that too. We are absolutely going to see reparations happening as Dan said, and I'm looking forward to continuing conversations like these with everybody here.
Yes, definitely always good to hear what the family is talking about and what they're up to. You guys stay strong out there in Minnesota. I know it's a lot with what's going on, the George Floyd trial. We're out here watching and we're praying. But with that, I'd just like to thank you again, Daniel, for joining us. And peace, love, and reparations. Let's get together. We're going to have to work together to make this thing go. So good to know that there are people who are serious about it as we are out there. And if there aren't any last words, I will take us out of here.
Stay black.
Peace.
All right.
Peace, love, and reparations, all.
Justice! Now!
Racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame.
Justice! Now!
So wherever we live in America, we have to face the fact honestly that racial discrimination is present. So don't get complacent.